Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a video on cozy mystery tropes I just can't stand. They just are pet peeves of mine. I feel like a lot of these occur very often, and even though I love cozy mysteries, they are frustrating, and it's just like, again? Really? I know there's something to be said about a genre having tropes, but some of these are a little overdone in my opinion, and are just not personal favorites of mine. I would love to hear down below in the comments what kind of cozy mystery tropes really just irritate you. Let me know in the comments down below. This is a video based on another video I saw released by Intentionally Bookish. She had a video very similar to this about cozy mystery tropes that she dislikes a couple months ago, so I will link her video down below in the description for you. Definitely check it out. It's a wonderful video. Definitely have some of the same pet peeves as she does, but some of my own as well that I just... We're gonna get a little annoyed in this video. It's just a little like, ugh. So let's go ahead and get into this, and if you are new here, welcome. My name is Amy Marie, and I do videos on mystery, some makeup and mystery, history. If you like mystery, this is the haven for you. So hit subscribe and let's get into this. So the first cozy mystery trope slash pet peeve, I feel like every cozy mystery starts with this, and I understand why, because it does set you up well, it's interesting, but it's so overdone, is that the heroine, at least in most cases, it's usually a heroine, was forced to move to the cozy town she's at. So whether that was because, you know, someone died in her family and she inherited their home, so she's moving back to her hometown, whether that's because she got divorced and she's, you know, just the big city life wasn't for her, she's moving back to the small cozy town. It seems like every cozy mystery series I read, they're like moving back to the small cozy town. And it just, every time. And I'm like, is there never a time where they just were like living there and the mysteries happened to them? I don't hate it. I think it can set up some interesting plot dynamics, especially if someone's moving back in with their mother or another relative, or, I mean, it sets up some interesting dynamics, but I just feel like it's so overdone. The second one I hate, this one is just in books in general, but I feel like it happens in the cozy genre a lot, is that the best friend has absolutely no life. Like, you have this best friend to the main character, and they just have nothing. You know, like maybe they just drop everything to help the protagonist. They have like no job, no love life, they abandon all interests, there's just no past, you'd have no idea anything about this person except maybe that they've been best friends with the protagonist since like kindergarten or something. You know nothing about them, and even when I was reading recently, the best friend character had a job, a job that should be very demanding in terms of the time that this person puts into it, especially because they're advancing in their career. And yet, every book in the series, she's able to drop everything for her friend. And I'm not saying that if someone in my friend's life was murdered, obviously that's an exception. But like, just to help investigate little things, like, I mean, they're just dropping their job all the time, and I'm like, how are these people not getting fired? Like, do they have, I mean, or they'll have like a best friend who is a homemaker and has like 3 small children, yet she's like always running out the door to help the protagonist, and I'm like, what about her kids? Like, it's just like, they have, the best friend has no life. And to me, some of the best cozy mystery series I've read, the best friend and secondary characters have a more fleshed out life and can't always help, and they have love interests, and they, like, you know, there's more to them than just they're there to help and provide information to the protagonist. And I personally, that is a big pet peeve of mine. The next one, this one was one that Intentionally Bookish said, and I very much agree, is the phone is always dead. You know, more modern cozy mysteries, when they are being attacked at the murderers after them or something, and their phone is always dead. Like girl, you are investigating a murder mystery. How can your phone, like, how would you let your phone get dead? I can't quite wrap my mind around that. Now, the exception to this, the only time I've had this happen in a book where I was like, okay, fine, fair enough, is when the protagonist was in the middle of the woods and she couldn't get cell reception. That's fine. That's reasonable. Or there was one time where the protagonist was running, trying to pull her phone out to get help, dropped it, and the killer like stepped on it and crushed it. Okay. That's fine. That's reasonable. I think there's ways you can write that into the plot where they're not able to call for help, but when their phone is always dead, I'm like, one, I can't really name many people in my own life who let their phones die. I mean, we're very, as a culture, very cell phone conscientious. Like, we are on top of our cell phones, if nothing else. But to also know that you're putting yourself in active danger going after a murderer and you have your phone die, I mean, that just... So when she said that in her video, I was like, yes, absolutely, that is such a pet peeve. This also seems to be kind of a recurring one, and this kind of goes along with my first point about the heroine being forced to move, is when the husband or wife of the main character is always dead. It seems like every single story starts with this main character whose husband or wife just died, or they got divorced from them. Like, I can think of one cozy mystery series I've read where they actually were in a happy marriage at the beginning of the cozy series. Now, I understand some people like, the developing romance, and I'm not, that's nice too, but it just, they're always dead. They could never just be, like, single in the beginning, like the first book, and then end up, with the person. It's always that they were single and recently widowed or divorced. And of course those things happen, and I'm not saying those things don't happen and that's not like an interesting, a way to develop a character, but it seems like every single time I'm opening a book and I'm like just waiting like what happened to their past love interest, because it's always very tragic. Along with that is love triangles. I'm not a fan of the romance genre of books. I don't read those personally. It's just not my thing. I don't mind if there's a bit of romance, clean romance in my cozy mysteries. That's totally fine. But love triangles, can we just... Why? Why? I mean, especially because most of the cozy mysteries I read, it feels like the protagonists are usually maybe in their early 30s, and I'm like, aren't we... like old enough and mature enough to be past this? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not reading this for relationship drama, so when there's a love triangle, I just kind of, it's a personal pet peeve of mine. If you're reading it for other reasons, maybe the relationship drama is great, but for me, it's just not my favorite. Again, another love pet peeve of mine is that the love interest is always in law enforcement. Like, feels like 80% of the time. It just, I don't like the dichotomy of they meet the love interest on the first case that they're trying to like solve, and they're butting heads, and like, the love interest is threatening to arrest them or suspecting the heroine or giving them lectures or being overprotective. Like, it just, can the love interest not be like this nice guy down at the coffee shop or something? And that there are some I've read that I really enjoy, like a Scottish bookshop mystery where the love interest is not involved in law enforcement at all. So I'm not saying that it happens as much as some of these other tropes, but it's just a pet peeve of mine where it seems like there's constantly the love interest is in law enforcement, which there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with dating someone in law enforcement, but it seems to always create more drama between the characters, and I would rather, and sometimes they also will feed the amateur sleuth these clues that they would have no access to unless they were in with someone on the law enforcement team. So I understand there's kind of like a plot-driven point there, but I would rather the protagonist kind of comes to it on her own conclusions from drawing it out of people, or even having a friend on the law enforcement team, or getting them to admit to something, or by swapping information or something. Like, I would rather see it cleverly drawn out of them rather than they're dating and then there's this like tension on the relationship because every book, they're dating, but oh, don't you go after them now, like don't do that. Like, it stresses me out, honestly. So that is not my favorite. My last pet peeve, because it's just very unrealistic, and yes, I mean, I'm reading books on murder mysteries and amateur sleuths, so I'm not saying this is the most realistic genre out there, but it seems like in a lot of these cozy mysteries, there's always like some huge inheritance that the hero gets to bail them out of financial duress, and I just, it happens like so much, it seems like, where they get a huge inheritance. Now, I don't mind it when they like inherit when they inherit a house or something, and that's kind of what causes them to move back to their town, maybe to reconnect to the roots or something. I don't mind that as much. But when they just inherit like a bunch of money out of nowhere because their food business is suffering and that's what saves them, and I don't know, it's just kind of, it's just like, what do they call that? Just out of the blue, like, oh, well, it solves the problem, but it's just it's not a satisfying solution. I want to see them, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, figure out a real solution. I want to see them go to the bank and get a loan. I want to see them, figure out a fundraiser or something. I want to see something with a little more interest than, oh, look, this random person we didn't know existed died. Here's this money. Your financial situation is saved. Yay. It just seems a little, what is it, Deus Ex Machina to me, where I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, yes, it could happen. If it happened occasionally in a book, that would be fine, but it seems like I've recently read a couple of those and I'm just like, really? Okay. Anyways, so that is my cozy mystery tropes I hate. I hope you will check out Intentionally Bookish's video down below. I will link her channel and her video on this, since it inspired this one, down below for you to check out. Let me know down below what mystery tropes drive you crazy. I would love to know. It's always interesting to know what gets under people's skin. And if you loved any of these tropes that I talked about, let me know, because I'm always, people have different opinions, and I'm always very interested when someone might be like, oh, but I love it when the law enforcement, is a love interest. If you do love that, let me know why. I want to know. Maybe you'll change my mind. So yeah, share what irritates you. Share if you actually like any of these or don't mind them as much as I do, but I would love to hear yours down below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more content coming very soon, and I'll see you guys all in my next video. Bye!